Welcome back to the poker vlog. This is episode number 199, and for this one, we're playing high stakes at Bellagio. It's a 10, 20, 40 game with massive pots and tons of really interesting situations. You guys are gonna love it, but before we get started, I have a few announcements to make. The first one is that I'm actually right about to head out to the lodge, so if you're watching this, I'm likely already there, and I'm gonna be there until the 8th, playing cash games and tournaments. And then, let's see, March 23rd, Andrew and I are hosting our first ever Detroit meetup game. It's long overdue. That'll be at the MGM Grand, and just really excited to go out there. Hopefully you guys can make it to one of those stops. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I woke up in the middle of the night and decided it's time to go for it. We're about to play uncapped 10, 20, 40 in the high stakes room at Bellagio. I haven't played in that area since I had a $10,000 loss there in October of last year. I've been hesitant to go back, mostly out of fear. In the sessions leading up to this one, I haven't been playing particularly great either, but right now I'm feeling good, and I need to get comfortable playing bigger in order to prepare myself for some massive games at the lodge in Austin that I've publicly committed myself to, including 100-200. My name gets called, the cashier sees me coming, has 5-10 chips ready for me. He's gonna need to replace those. Flying in for more today.
Oh, okay. What would you like? 10K?
All right.
Number 6.
Cool. Thanks, man.
No problem. Good luck.
Thank you. We're in for $10,000 and are on our way to play the biggest game currently running in Las Vegas. It's listed as 10-20, but there's also a $20 big blind ante, and the players have agreed to add a mandatory $40 straddle. I'm feeling a combination of nervousness and excitement as I make my way over to the table. Anytime I take a shot at high stakes, I have an opportunity to have the largest win of my life, or things can go the other way like they did last time, and I can have the biggest loss of my life. I mentally prepared myself for the latter, but I'm hoping for the best, so we get started at 2:58 in the morning. A few minutes in, we've got Queen 10 offsuit in the under the gun straddle. The big blind calls for 20 more. He's one of the only 2 rec players at the table. I want to get involved in bigger pots against him, especially when I'm in position. I raised to 140. The big blind calls. We're heads up in position. The flop comes ace-10-4 with 2 clubs. We've got second pair and some backdoor draws. Surprisingly, the big blind leads for 200. This isn't a line that's taken by top level players, especially since an ace-high flop is typically going to be much better for me as the pre-flop aggressor. I call to see how this is going to develop on the turn. The dealer puts out the king of clubs, giving us the 10 high flush draw and a gutter. Plus, this board really favors us with another Broadway card. I wouldn't expect the opponent to have many straight, set, or 2-pair combos. My biggest concern is that he may have a flush. The big blind fires for 400. I don't get the sense that he has that strong of a hand. It feels like he's been betting to see where he's at. I raised to 1300 in order to give myself a chance to win the pot with what's been downgraded to third pair. The risk is that the opponent might re-raise and blow me off a hand that has equity. More often than not, if I get re-raised here, I'll be drawing dead. After quite a bit of tanking, the big blind folds, what's probably the best hand. We get our first bluff through of the night. It's nice when that happens early on in a session, and you're playing larger than normal stakes in order to build some confidence as well as a stack. It's extremely stressful playing at this level. Taking down a medium-sized pot relieves some of that. Not long after, we've got ace-queen offsuit in the hijack. I raised to 100. The under the gun straddler is the only caller. We're heads up in position. The flop comes jack-jack-3 with 2 diamonds. We've got 2 overs and some backdoor draws. We probably have the best hand. Under the gun checks. I want to clear out some hands with equity. I down bet to 80. If the opponent doesn't at least have strong backdoor draws, I expect him to fold. If he has a flush draw, small to medium pocket pair or better, I expect him to at least call. He calls, but may not be too strong. The turn is the 6 of diamonds, giving us the flush draw. Under the gun checks. Checking back to ensure that I get to the river is a reasonable play. Turning my hand into a semi-bluff also seems reasonable. I bet 240 to represent the ace-high flush. I don't expect to get raised very frequently since we're holding the ace of diamonds, which removes a lot of the flush draw combinations the player will have. Under the gun puts in the check raise to 600 in order to give me a lesson on what to expect when you're expecting. I could be drawing dead if the opponent has a boat. I'll be drawing slim if I'm up against a flush. I don't see how I can fold just yet though. I call for 360 more. If we can hit a diamond, that'd be phenomenal. Instead, the river is the 4 of clubs. We brick it and end up with nothing. Under the gun bets 1300. I'm not going to get out of line in this situation. I fold to live another day. The last several sessions have been frustrating for me because I haven't made too many big hands in good situations. That might change as we're dealt pocket 4s in the cutoff of what's currently a 5-handed game. I raised to 100. The button is a pro from the UK that I played with one other time at Aria in the uncapped 5-10-20 vlog a few episodes back. He calls in position. The under the gun straddler calls. He's about the only person left in the game that I feel like I have a significant edge on. I'm hoping that the game will fill up with some other rec players, but I also don't mind testing my skills a little if that doesn't happen. 3 of us are seeing the flop. It comes Jack 8-4 rainbow. We've got bottom set and multiple opponents. Under the gun checks. I might check with top set on this board. Having a set of 4s makes it more likely that one of the other 2 players in the hand will have top pair or something else that they can call a bet with. I make it 160. The button has seen some vlogs and knows that just because I'm continuing with aggression, I don't necessarily have anything. He puts me to the test by raising to 400. Unlike in my Spanish test during my freshman year of high school, this is a test I'm going to pass, and I won't be copying any of Greg Perry's answers. Under the gun folds. I consider flatting, but because I'm bluffing a lot more these days, I want to keep my aggressive plays balanced and consistent when I have strong hands too. I re-raise to 1,000. In a big pot for 600 more, the button will probably only fold his complete air. He folds this time. The button is a friendly guy who would later tell me that he tried to bluff me with King 10 of clubs, which is nothing except 1 over and some backdoor draws. If I knew that's what he had in the moment, I would have flatted his raise, although he had a lot of cards that would have helped him improve on the turn. Next we've got 8-4 suited in the under the gun straddle. The button raises to 100. The small blind calls. He's a new player named Mark. He has a massive $30,000 stack. Mark is also from the UK and he's friends with a business partner of mine at the lodge and mixed game crusher, Jake Abdallah. Mark told me that he's interested in playing the 100-200 game that I'm currently trying to prepare for, which will take place at the lodge the following week. This is definitely the best practice I can get for the larger game, especially since I'm even up against potentially one and the same opponents. I defend for 60 more. We're going 3 ways to the flop. It comes 8-3 deuce with 2 hearts. We've got top pair, no kicker, and a backdoor straight draw. The small blind checks. I check. The button isn't letting anyone see a free card. He bets 100. Mark has a big bag of tricks. He pulls one out here, check raising to 500. Folding is reasonable, not enjoyable though. I don't like the idea of calling with what could be the 3rd best hand. I just really don't think that the small blind has anything. I have an 8, reducing the likelihood that he has a set. He shouldn't have any 2 pair hands. The only really strong hands that he'll have is the 1 combination of pocket 8s and the 3 other combos of pocket 3s and pocket deuces each. That's only 7 total combos. The same is true for the button as well. Since I have good card removal and I came to play, I put in the rare cold re-raise to 1600. This should look like I have the absolute nuts. If the button doesn't have a set, he's going to have to fold pretty much everything. Even if he has aces, he's going to hate the spot that he's in. I re-raised on the flop earlier with a set. Here I'm doing it as a bluff. The button folds. I only need to get through one more player who could have been bluffing himself. It's hard to imagine that he's bluffing now because he puts in the re-raise jam for 10,400 effective. Welcome to the high stakes poker world where the punishments are literally capital. I'm not 100% convinced that I don't currently have the best hand, only 98%, but I fold. I get caught trying to make a move that doesn't work out. I certainly could have avoided that loss. I'm okay trying out some unique plays occasionally though. I've got to brush it off and move on. The very next hand we have pocket deuces in the big blind. The button raises to 100. This is Mark who just beat me. I call. The under the gun straddler is the other UK pro at the table who raised me with King 10 suited when I had bottom set. He 3-bets to 560. This is one of the key differences between higher stakes games and lower stakes. There's a ton more 3-betting pre-flop. Also, we're playing for piles. The button calls. I'm getting a good price to set mine with a hand that should be easy to play post-flop, although I've already made some more complicated than they have to be. I call for 460 more. We're going 3 ways to the flop out of position. It comes 10-6-4 with 2 spades. We brick it, and we're going to be done if anyone mouth breathes on it. I check. Luckily, the opponents are both nose breathers and check back. I wouldn't expect either player to check strong hands with multiple opponents and some draws out there. I could be best, or the other 2 players might be afraid that I have a set of 6s or 4s, since clearly smaller pocket pairs are in my range. The turn is the 5 of diamonds, giving me a gutter to the low end of the straight, and it's another card that in my opponent's minds could have given me a set. Despite losing more than I needed to by turning my hand into a bluff right before getting involved here, I go for it again, making it 2,000 as an overbet bluff. I'm by far the most likely person to have a monster given how this has been played. We don't have to sweat too long. Both players fold almost immediately. We may have been bluffing with the best hand. Either way, it feels great to get it through. At the very least, we denied equity from our opponents and avoided having to check fold if someone else decided to take a stab at it. This win gets us back to even, and what's already been an eventful session, it's not even close to over either. We pick up ace-jack offsuit in the small blind. It's 5-handed right now, and there's a double straddle, so it's 10, 20, 40, 80 with a $20 big blind ante. The button is the sole rec player remaining and is the same one that I tangled with earlier on. He's first to act, he limps in for 80. Button limps don't happen very frequently in these games. I'm in a unique situation in which I want to isolate the button limp from out of position. I raised to 400. I wouldn't be mad if everyone folded. Playing a large pot with ace-jack offsuit from the small blind isn't ideal, but raising was definitely the best option. The button calls. I'm glad to be going heads up with him. The flop comes 10-3-3 with 2 spades. We've got 2 overs and some backdoor draws. The standard play is to bet small on a paired board. For some reason, I bet 600. I suppose that this could induce a few additional folds, but against an opponent who's more of a fit or fold type of player as it is, betting small makes a lot of sense. The button calls. He doesn't seem thrilled about it though. The turn is the 6 of clubs. If I'm being honest, I don't 100% know where I'm at in this hand, but I've been playing poker since I was 15 and I just turned 34, so over nearly 20 years of playing, I've developed pretty good intuition. Regularly, you see me make plays that are in theory not great or even bad, but somehow they tend to work out for me a lot of the time. Sometimes they don't though, and I look like an idiot, like in the 8-4 suited hand. We're about to make one of those high variance type of plays right now. I bet 2,000 to try and steal the pot from the button. He does some odd things, so I don't have any clue as to the type of hands that he's limp calling raises with on the button and also calling flop bets with. I just have noticed that over the course of the session, he hasn't gotten to showdown much because he tends to look for reasons to fold. I'm giving him 2,000 reasons here. Even if he has a flush draw, he won't be excited to call on a paired board. With that being said, I wouldn't call my post-flop play in this hand very good. Still, it works out. After only 5 seconds of thinking about it, the button folds and asks to see what the river would have been, which typically indicates that the opponent wants to see if the draw that he had would have gotten there. If the dealer lets the button see, he's not a sharer, so I have to grab the card myself to see that the river would have been the 5 of hearts. This win gets us up 700 for the session. Not bad for about 2 hours of play, but in this game, it's not much. 45 minutes later, we've got pocket tens and the under the gun straddle. The stack has dwindled down to slightly below even. We're still playing a short-handed game with only 4 other players. The cutoff, who's first to act, raises to 100. The button 3-bets to 320. I probably have the best hand and I hate all my options. Folding pocket tens is ridiculous in a 5-handed game. Calling and allowing the initial pre-flop raiser to 4-bet or call behind me isn't ideal either. 4-betting to clear out equity and win without seeing a flop would be nice, but that seems like a bit of an overplay and it comes with some risk. If I get 5-bet, I might have to fold or I'll have to play a huge pot out of position. My image is solid and people are raising and 3-betting wide ranges, so I put in the cold 4-bet to 1100. The cutoff folds immediately. We've got 1 down. The button folds without giving it much thought either. It's not a big hand. Still, it's interesting because it illustrates how my play changes in a short-handed higher stakes game because my opponent's ranges are different here than they are in lower stakes full ring games. In the previous vlog, you saw me cold call a 3-bet from the big blind in a 2-5 game with jacks in a somewhat similar situation because I felt like my opponents were a lot more likely to have strong holdings. Here, I'm cold 4-betting a hand that's even worse, and the opponent snap folded. I can't remember ever cold 4-betting pocket tens in 2-5. Tens are decent. Aces are better. We're in the under the gun straddle. I'm excited. My friend Jake McDonald is excited as well. He's been in quite a few vlogs previously. He's on the button here and raises to 100. Mark is having a tough go of it this session so far. He's lost some big pots and is down about 10k as he tosses in a calling chip from the small blind. It's about to get much rougher for both opponents because the price is going up. I 3-bet to 600. Jake must have something that he likes. He calls for 500 more. The small blind calls as well. We're going 3 ways to the flop. It's King 7-7 rainbow. What a dream. There shouldn't be many 7s in my opponent's ranges, and neither of them will have pocket kings since they didn't 4-bet pre-flop, but both players could have some hands containing kings. The small blind checks. There aren't any draws to worry about, and it's a paired board. I bet 600 once again. The button doesn't want to relinquish his hand. He has another player to act behind him, and I could have pocket kings, aces, and ace kings, so he really shouldn't be sticking around too light. He's not concerned as he gathers chips and calls. It's tough to put him on anything specific. Maybe he just has a king, but he could have some combinations of trip 7s or something much worse like backdoor draws. The small blind doesn't want anything to do with this pot. He folds. It's down to heads up. The turn is the jack of diamonds. I'd feel better about this card if I had the ace of diamonds. I kind of want to see how my buddy wants to play this. I check for pot control in case I'm up against a 7 or pocket jacks. If the button checks back, I'll almost for sure have the best hand. Instead, he bets 1400. I don't exactly know what to make of this. I figure that he most likely has a king and I should be in good shape. I don't think check raising will accomplish much though. I call. This has become a large pot. The river is the queen of spades. I played a ton with Jake in Las Vegas over the last 10 years. He knows that I wouldn't have made it this far in the hand without something strong, especially after 3-betting pre-flop. I'll have full house combinations that he won't have, including pocket kings and queens. If I check, he may even check back hands like King Jack, King Queen, and Ace King. I can't allow that to happen. I don't think that Jake would attempt to bluff at this point either, so if I check, he'd really only be putting in bets with hands that have me beat, and I won't be able to fold. With all the adrenaline in my body right now, it's tough to think of the best play for us to make. I don't know what comes over me, but my mouth just blurts out
4,000.
It's an odd sizing. I sort of like it though. If the opponent has King Queen or King Jack, you may have to call because he has really good card removal, making it less likely that I'll have a full house. If he has trip sevens, which has me beat, he has no card removal to the full houses that I'd likely have and could possibly even consider folding. At first, I'm concerned that the opponent might have trips or jacks full and is going to call or jam. That doesn't appear to be the case. He's tanking for a long time. I don't blame him. It's a big pot and a big decision. I'd never take this line with Ace King since that hand doesn't beat the other two pair combos. Aces is probably the worst hand that I'd actually do anything similar with. My buddy is thinking through what happened from the start of the hand until now. Usually he's pretty quick with his decisions. This is about the longest that I've ever seen him in the tank. A full 4 minutes goes by before he finally folds. He doesn't immediately tell me what he gets away from. I figure aces is the best hand and he made a good laydown. Maybe if I made it smaller, he would have called and I could have gotten more value. In any case, it's a big pot that comes our way to get us up around 3,000 in profit. I'd find out later that we completely stole the pot. Jake would text me after the session that he folded trip sevens. If I had lost the pot, I'd have been stuck piles of money. Somehow me playing the hand like a fish helps me get a bluff through that I wasn't even aware that I was attempting. A lot of strange things had been happening to me lately, causing my opponents to win pots in weird ways. I'm glad something like that finally happens for me. 20 minutes later, we've got another premium hand with Ace King suited on the button. Mark is in the hijack. He raises to 160. This is a larger sizing than most people have been using. I'm going to be making it more. I 3-bet to 500. The hijack calls for an additional 340. We're heads up in position. The flop comes Queen 7-6 rainbow. We have 2 overs and some backdoor draws. The hijack checks. I'd like to keep control of the pot. I bet 460. Perhaps some better hands like small pocket pairs may fold. Other hands with equity may board as well. The hijack calls, not what I was hoping for, but that's okay. The turn is another queen, our backdoor draws are dead, and I wouldn't be shocked if we're up against trips. The hijack checks, I slow down and check back to try and at least get to showdown cheaply. The river is the king of spades, giving our hand a lot more value. The hijack checks, I doubt he'd do that with trips after I check back the turn. We should have the best hand most of the time. I want to bet an amount that can get called by a worse king, or possibly even something like pocket jacks or tens. I make it 1200. Mark apparently has something, but it must not be that great. He doesn't quite know what to do.
Should watch more of your vlogs now. Know what you're up to on these spots.
I'm again rooting for a call. This time we get it. I turn over Ace King of Hearts. Mark gives us a nice hand tap on the table. He's a gracious guy. He knows that I'm filming and is even willing to show you guys what he called with.
You want me to show you one?
Sure, yeah.
Perfect.
Oh shit.
That's fine.
Yeah. Thanks. Mark was basically bluff catching with jiggities. This time we had it to win a nice pot, well over $4,000. With this one, we've got 16,000 in front of us and are up 6,000 on the session. Everything is going about as well as it could go for the most part. It's always fun to play higher stakes than normal and have a big stack to work with. As the session's winding down, we've got King Queen offsuit on the button. We're playing 5-handed. I raise to 100. Mark calls in the under the gun straddle. We're heads up in position. The flop comes 7-4-4 rainbow. Under the gun checks. I'll be mixing in some bets and some checks with King Queen. This time I check back. The turn is the 10. Mark grabs some chips and announces about a 200. I don't think I can really stick around, but I suspect that I'm getting bluffed by a very specific hand. I call out exactly what he has as I fold. I feel like you have Jack 9.
Wow. Hello.
Pretty good.
I hope that goes on the vlog. Not bad.
Mark showed Jack 9 for the table to see. That's the last interesting thing that happens before we book a big win. Played for 4 hours. I won 5,500. It was a huge win in a massive game. I'm really happy that it went well. I haven't played higher stakes since I lost $10,000. I think that was in October, and I've been a bit nervous to jump back in. So I'm doing this today mostly in preparation for the 100-200 game that I'll be playing in at the Lodge, which will be 5 times bigger than what I just played without straddles. So with straddles, it'll play, 10 and 20 times bigger. where I could lose 60 to 100K. And for that reason, I'm not gonna have a profit goal for this year. I'm gonna be focused on getting better and putting in more hours in bigger games. Actually, just putting in more hours in general. So really enjoying doing the coaching stuff with Nick Petrangelo. He's awesome, and the stuff that he's saying is really helpful. I don't really like all the lines that I took today necessarily, especially with that aces hand. That was a weird one, but I did get some bluffs through, and very excited to put this episode together. I think it'll be episode number 199, but I wish it was episode 200 because that would be pretty cool. Anyway, I'm gonna get some sleep, and then I'll have the rest of the day to kind of enjoy the win. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like and subscribe buttons because it helps out the channel a ton. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know in the comment section, and I'm happy to get back to you. This was a pretty wild session for me. You know, it doesn't always come through necessarily in the videos, but my heart's kind of racing the whole time when I'm playing higher stakes, and it's a blast for me to play these sessions, film them, and share them with you. So I appreciate your guys' support. I'm going to be at the Lodge until March 8th, and then going out to MGM Grand in Detroit March 23rd. So I have more information in the description box below regarding what I'm going to be doing, but mostly just playing cash games and tournaments. No schedule set for the Lodge. MGM Detroit, that'll be more like a properly scheduled event. And I don't have all the details off the top of my head now, but I will put them in the description box below. All right, guys, hope you're doing well. Next episode is episode 200 for me, and the next several episodes are going to be very, very special. So I hope you guys stay tuned for those, and good luck at the tables. I'll see you next time.